The Bruins continue to play a relatively consistent, solid brand of hockey over the past 10 days. They were able to successfully avenge their worst loss of the season against the Ottawa Senators with a strong defensive start, even with that single goal against, holding the Sens to only 2 shots on goal in the first. It seems that Boston is able to find a win under a variety of circumstances these days, a trait that will pay dividends through this compressed schedule. Can they keep the good times rolling against the hated Leafs? This is a Bruins tape-to-tape snapshot.
Don't look now, folks, but the Boston Bruins are on a 5-game win streak after defeating the Ottawa Senators on Thursday night in overtime by a score of 3-2. As we may all remember, the last time these two teams faced each other a few days ago, the Ottawa Senators kicked the crap out of the Bruins by a score of 7-2, and what a difference a few days makes and a few lineup changes make, because this was a tale of two very, very different games between these two rivals. Marco Sturm continues to maintain a steady course by keeping together a lineup that has worked in this 5-game winning streak, which means Mason Lohrei continues to be the odd man out. The game itself did not start off well in that Ottawa was able to score on its first shot on goal against Joonas Korpisalo, but the Bruins proved to be resilient and fight back and claw their way back into this game. Andrew Peeke showed his toughness and resiliency by taking a hit, leaving the game, and then coming back to somehow block a shot, I believe, in the overtime period. And talking about the overtime period, Charlie McAvoy was in beast mode during that overtime period. While he passed up an opportunity early on during the overtime to take a shot on goal, and the Bruins themselves seemed to be a little too slow and deliberate in approaching the overtime period. Once Charlie got back on the ice, he was not to be denied, and he nearly set up Pavel Zacha for a game winner before Pavel Zacha actually scored the game-winning goal with 6 seconds left in overtime off of a sweet pass from Charlie McAvoy. Fraser Minten and Marat Hustadinov continue to impress. They had a killer shift in that overtime defensively. After not playing well in the game against the New York Islanders and being shorted ice time in the third period of that game, Sean Kuraly and Tanner Jeannot were bound and determined to play better, and play better they did, in that Sean Kuraly scored a goal in the game that gave the Bruins a 2-1 lead, and we saw his patented jumping into the glass celebration. All in all, this was a solid win for the Boston Bruins, and now we are on to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Toronto is hot on Boston's heels in the standings, but that might not necessarily mean they are all that good. Their 8-5 record hides the tumultuous start to their season 2. They are finally moving into the black and gold differential at 2, which they have reached by steadily improving since their season worst of -4 around Halloween. They are also coming off of a 3-game win streak that saw pretty decent scoring. Matthews, Tavares, Nylander, and Nyes lead the team in goals with 8, 7, 6, and 5 apiece. Boston is going to have to be disciplined in this tilt as Tavares, Nyes, and Matthews continue to be dangerous on the man advantage. The Leafs' quote-unquote good but boring and steady game will still be a good test for Boston, especially considering how tight the conference and division both are. Anthony Stolarz should be a decent matchup against Jeremy Swayman. Both goalies have nearly identical stats, with Swayman getting the slight edge in his save percentage of .897 to Stolarz's .895, and with his goals against average of 3.10 to Stolarz's 3.11. Stolarz has started the last 3 games, and Toronto just put their backup goalie, Caden Primo, on waivers, so it's possible Wall is back to play. Regardless, Boston is going to have their new defensive structure thoroughly tested by the remnants of the old core 4. Make sure you rate and review the podcast to help us reach more listeners, and tune in weekly to our full podcast, available on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and all podcast platforms.